So today, Caitlin Clark released a water bottle. Yes, I mean this, a Gatorade water bottle. And you might be saying, okay, what relevant? Why am I talking about a Gatorade water bottle? Have you lost your damn mind, Mick? Because it just sums up all of this. It sums up everything that's going on. Like, we are now in a situation where this Gatorade water bottle was limited to 2,200. And you might be saying, okay, yeah, it's going to be really difficult to get. Which, duh. Anything Caitlin Clark limited to 2,000 is going to be really, really tough to get. Because, again, anything with Caitlin Clark's name on it is like gold dust.
Today, Caitlin Clark dropped a Gatorade water bottle. Not a playoff performance, not a record-breaking triple-double, a water bottle. And the website crashed. Not some random third-party retailer running on outdated servers, but Gatorade itself, a global sports drink giant with the kind of infrastructure built to handle Super Bowl-level traffic, couldn't keep up with demand. There was a virtual queue for a bottle. That detail alone tells you this wasn't normal product interest. It was commercial pressure hitting in real time. The release was limited to 2,200 units. On paper, that number sounds small. In practice, it was gasoline on a fire that was already burning. Anything tied to Clark's name in limited quantities has shown a pattern. It disappears fast. Jerseys, collabs, drops. The demand isn't theoretical anymore. It's documented. So yes, the sellout was expected, but overwhelming the site? That's a different tier. That's when a product launch stops being a fan moment and starts becoming a market signal. And what made this launch different is important. This wasn't a standard endorsement cycle, where an athlete films a commercial, says a slogan, and fades into the background until the next ad campaign. This was positioned like a true consumer product rollout, a signature flavor, personal branding baked into the name, a release strategy designed around anticipation and scarcity. That's not surface-level marketing, that's structural commitment. Brands don't assign permanent shelf space casually. If a flavor performs, it stays. If it doesn't, it's gone. So when early demand overwhelms infrastructure, that isn't just buzz, it's proof of conversion. Conversion is everything. That's the part casual observers sometimes miss. Social media noise can spike awareness, viral clips can inflate visibility, but brands don't write large checks for awareness alone. They invest when awareness turns into buying behavior, when consumers open wallets, when retail velocity sustains beyond the first 24 hours. A website crash isn't just a headline, it's a measurable indicator that people moved from interest to action. Now zoom out. When Forbes enters the conversation, it shifts from sports culture to
Surprise!
Tyrese!
What's up, y'all? It's Tyrese here to surprise my girl, Caitlin. Gatorade has brought back her favorite flavor, Rainberry, now with lower sugar.
Rainberry, best Gatorade flavor that's ever been invented right here.
Try it and tell me if it tastes the same.
Even better than I remember. It's not even close.
And it's got your face on it.
business culture. Forbes doesn't rank athletes based on highlight reels. They rank influence based on leverage, attention translated into revenue, power quantified through movement, tickets sold, products shifted, audiences expanded. When they frame Clark as a central force in women's sports economics, it's not about a hot month, it's about trajectory. Layer on top of that the endorsement portfolio stacking in the same era: Nike, State Farm, Wilson, Gatorade. These aren't niche startups chasing viral moments. These are legacy institutions that guard brand reputation carefully and commit long-term when they see sustainable pull. One of those deals could define an off-court career. All of them landing within a tight window signals something more aggressive, coordinated belief in a market centerpiece. That's where the tension starts surfacing, because professional sports has always operated on two currencies: performance capital and attention capital. Sometimes they overlap perfectly, often they don't. On the court, dominance is measured in efficiency, impact, consistency, championships. Off the court, dominance is measured in reach, relatability, narrative pull, and the ability to expand the consumer base beyond the sport's core audience. If you're A'ja Wilson, this dynamic isn't abstract. Wilson's resume is ironclad: MVP awards, championships, finals MVP recognition. She represents sustained excellence. In a perfectly merit-based commercial ecosystem, that level of production would automatically translate into the largest endorsement ecosystem. But the marketplace has never been a pure meritocracy. It rewards expansion. It rewards the athlete who pulls new eyes into the arena, not just the athlete who masters the arena itself. Clark's influence extends beyond traditional WNBA viewership. Casual consumers recognize her name. Non-basketball fans buy her merchandise. Ratings spike when her team appears on national broadcasts. That's not a criticism of Wilson. It's a reflection of audience behavior. And audience behavior dictates sponsorship strategy. Brands do not negotiate with resentment. They follow data.
We do know that. We know that that is something that is happening, and we know in general that like Caitlin Clark merch sells like crazy, and we know everybody knows the first batch of the Caitlin Clark shoes are going.
A crashed website is data. Search trends are data. Sell-through rates are data. Retail reorders are data. Anticipation for a Nike signature shoe before a public release date is even finalized, that's data. When demand builds before inventory hits shelves, marketing departments treat it like early confirmation of scale. This is why the conversation feels charged, because it forces an uncomfortable acknowledgement. Being the best basketball player does not automatically mean being the biggest economic engine. Wilson can be the most complete player in the league and still trail in off-court leverage. Those statements are not mutually exclusive. The deeper issue isn't fairness, it's infrastructure. For decades, women's sports have operated within constrained exposure ecosystems, fewer primetime slots, less media investment, limited cross-demographic reach. When an athlete breaks through that ceiling and begins pulling audiences who were previously disengaged, corporations move fast. They want proximity to expansion. Clark's rise isn't just about fan enthusiasm, it's about her ability to bridge markets. College fandom transitioning into professional consumption, regional support scaling into national visibility, social media clips converting into ticket purchases. That bridging effect is rare, and when brands detect rarity, they secure long-term alignment early. Another layer here is perception management. Sponsors track sentiment. They monitor how athletes show up in broader conversations. Public posture matters, not because athletes aren't allowed to feel competitive tension, but because brands prioritize stability. They want narratives that uplift, unify, and broaden appeal. Repeated friction in public discourse can introduce risk variables. Marketing departments don't ask who's right, they ask what sells without backlash. Meanwhile, the numbers continue stacking. Reports of off-court earnings surpassing rookie-scale salary structures, ticket resale markets adjusting around specific matchups, merchandise sell-through exceeding historical baselines. These aren't vibes, they're timestamps attached to transactions. It's also important to understand how this shifts league identity. When one athlete becomes a disproportionate driver of revenue and visibility, the ecosystem feels pressure. Teammates, competitors, media networks, even scheduling committees adjust around that gravity. National broadcasts cluster around high-demand games. Arena capacities are reevaluated. Sponsors renegotiate category exclusivity. The ripple effect spreads. But here's the key distinction. Expansion benefits everyone, even if the spotlight feels uneven. Increased ratings lead to stronger media rights deals. Stronger media deals raise salary ceilings. Elevated visibility attracts youth participation. Youth participation strengthens long-term fan pipelines. The market choosing a centerpiece doesn't inherently diminish other stars. It can amplify the league as a whole. Still, perception matters emotionally. For established champions, watching disproportionate commercial attention accumulate elsewhere can feel like recognition imbalance. And emotionally, that reaction is human, but economically, the marketplace responds to magnetism, not resume lines. Clark's magnetism has manifested in tangible behavior. Consumers who weren't previously engaged are now purchasing, tuning in, discussing. That shift creates corporate confidence, and corporate confidence translates into infrastructure, permanent flavors, multi-year contracts, signature product lines. The water bottle crash wasn't about hydration, it was about validation. Validation that her name can carry product weight independent of on-court output in that specific moment. Validation that limited supply meets outsized demand. Validation that the consumer base extends beyond traditional sports demographics. And none of that erases Wilson's dominance. Championships remain permanent, MVP awards don't expire, basketball history will reflect excellence accurately. But the economic storyline operates on a parallel track. It runs on expansion metrics, not fairness audits. This is why the league's next phase feels pivotal. If Clark sustains conversion beyond initial novelty, brands will deepen commitment. If she continues expanding audience layers, investment infrastructure will compound. If Wilson or other stars build comparable external bridges, the commercial hierarchy can rebalance. But it won't rebalance through complaint. It will rebalance through reach. Professional sports has always followed this pattern. The athlete who expands the pie becomes the centerpiece of marketing architecture. Sometimes that athlete is also the undisputed best player. Sometimes they're simply the most culturally resonant at a specific moment. Cultural resonance isn't always symmetrical with statistical dominance.
To be impossible to get. I don't think there'll be any issue getting Caitlin Clark shoes, as there's no issue with getting any regular basketball shoes. But if you guys don't remember, the first age of Wilsons were impossible to get. I think it's going to be impossible to get because this is a water bottle. Not only did it sell out, it was obviously going to sell out. The damn site crashed. The website crashed. The literal website, which was basically there for there to try sell obviously Caitlin Clark's water bottle, the Gatorade website, crashed. And it wasn't some...
The attention economy doesn't apologize for that. And so the conversation stops being about who deserves what and starts being about strategic adaptation. How does the league leverage this surge without narrowing identity to one face? How do other stars craft narratives that travel beyond core fans? How do brands balance momentum with inclusivity? Those are business questions, not emotional ones. What's undeniable is the signal strength. A limited 2,200 unit drop overwhelming a global brand's website is a headline, yes, but more importantly, it's a data point in a broader pattern of measurable consumer response. And patterns are what corporations build forecasts on. Clark's commercial dominance is not hypothetical. It's backed by observable behavior. Wilson's basketball dominance is equally concrete, backed by hardware and consistency. The friction arises when observers expect those two hierarchies to align perfectly. They rarely do. One currency builds legacies inside the sport. The other builds markets around the sport. Right now, Clark is driving the market engine, and until the numbers say otherwise, brands will continue aligning accordingly, not out of favoritism, not out of narrative bias, but out of measurable return. The water bottle was just the latest proof, and in an attention economy where proof is everything, that matters. And here's where this conversation goes even deeper, because once you strip away the emotion, the rivalry framing, and the social media noise, what you're really watching unfold is a case study in how modern sports economics works in real time. The water bottle wasn't the beginning, it was a checkpoint. The website crash is symbolic, but the real story is consistency. When one athlete repeatedly generates measurable spikes in ratings, in merchandise, in search traffic, in resale markets, that stops being coincidence. It becomes trend data. And trend data is what boardrooms respond to. What makes Caitlin Clark different in this moment isn't just popularity, it's transferability. Her audience travels, from college to the pros, from Iowa to national broadcasts, from basketball conversations to mainstream culture, from highlight clips to checkout carts. That kind of portability is rare. A lot of athletes are famous within the sport, fewer are famous beyond it, and brands pay for beyond. That's the distinction that keeps surfacing. Core fans are loyal, but they're limited in scale. Casual consumers are unpredictable, but they multiply reach. When Clark's name activates both groups simultaneously, it creates a multiplier effect. That multiplier is
Nothing website. It was fucking Gatorade. It was Gatorade. The site crashed. Like, virtual queue for a bottle of Gatorade. Like, if you guys don't know, like, it was literally like, it had a crash website. They literally had it like it was Nike sneakers. I didn't try to go get it, obviously. But I was looking through some of these things where it was like, the website, it had this and it scrolled down, it was like sold out. They literally made it almost like Nike sneakers. Like, I've never seen anything like that before. A damn water bottle. A damn water bottle crashed the fucking site. Like, it's going to sell out in seconds. There are 2,200 Caitlin Clark fans that will spend...
what companies chase. The Gatorade drop proves immediate action, but the larger endorsement stack proves long-term projection. Nike doesn't build signature anticipation infrastructure casually. State Farm doesn't align its brand identity with athletes unless it sees relatability across demographics. Wilson doesn't elevate athletes into signature territory without confidence in sustained relevance. This isn't a viral week, it's coordinated positioning. And that's why the economic engine conversation feels so stark, because once corporations align at scale, they rarely retreat quickly. They build campaigns, allocate budgets, design multi-year roadmaps. Marketing ecosystems don't pivot overnight unless performance collapses. So when 4 major brands converge around one athlete in a compressed window, it signals confidence in durability. Meanwhile, on the basketball side, excellence remains non-negotiable. A'ja Wilson represents dominance in its purest form: efficient scoring, defensive impact, championship hardware, leadership credibility. If you're building a roster, you want her skill set. If you're building a highlight reel of sustained greatness, she's in it. But if you're building a marketing funnel aimed at expanding the total addressable audience, the calculus changes. The question becomes, who pulls new consumers into the ecosystem, not who maximizes existing consumers, who grows the base. That's the uncomfortable business layer. Sports fans often want endorsement money to reflect fairness. They want it to mirror resume lines and trophy counts. But corporations operate on expansion metrics. They ask which athlete can move people who weren't already engaged, which name triggers curiosity beyond basketball Twitter, which presence converts passive awareness into purchase behavior. Clark has demonstrated that repeatedly. And here's another factor: narrative simplicity. Clark's story entered the league with massive pre-existing momentum: record-breaking college career, national television saturation, cultural debates orbiting her style of play. Whether people loved her or criticized her, they knew her. Recognition lowers the barrier to commercial conversion. Consumers buy what feels familiar. That familiarity compounds. Each endorsement reinforces the next. Each product launch expands brand equity. Each ranking amplifies perception of influence. It becomes self-reinforcing momentum. Brands don't just evaluate performance, they evaluate trajectory, and trajectory is pointing sharply upward. Now consider the league-wide implications. When one athlete begins driving disproportionate revenue, scheduling decisions shift. Television networks prioritize certain matchups. Ticket pricing models adjust dynamically. Arena relocations to larger venues become viable. Sponsorship packages expand. Media coverage clusters. The ecosystem reorganizes around demand density. That doesn't mean other stars disappear. It means the gravitational center moves. And gravity...
$20 on anything that says the word Caitlin Clark on it. Like, I know myself, like, this is as somebody that, like, sold quite a bit of merch. I absolutely sold quite a bit of merchandise with around this, and it was great. You know, before anything was Caitlin Clark logo related, and people were searching for things. Man, I made a bit of money from merch. That being said, I stand by this. I still feel like I did make kind of cool merch. I feel like
Opponents benefit from heightened attention during matchups. The league benefits from rising valuation conversations. But internally, the adjustment can feel uneven, especially for veterans who carried the league through years of incremental growth without comparable commercial windfalls. That tension is real, but it's also historically consistent across sports. Every league eventually encounters a moment when a single figure accelerates market expansion faster than the existing hierarchy anticipated. The response determines long-term health. Do stakeholders lean into the surge and build around it, or resist it and fragment the narrative? So far, the market has leaned in. The water bottle crash is one microexample of macro trend validation. Limited supply plus outsized demand equals measurable leverage, and leverage reshapes negotiation power. It influences future contract structures. It impacts revenue-sharing discussions. It reframes collective bargaining priorities, because when one rookie-scale salary player generates disproportionate external revenue, the financial model conversation intensifies, not just about individual earnings, but about league-wide distribution and salary cap evolution. This is why the off-court hierarchy matters beyond ego. It affects infrastructure. Clark's rise coincides with broader cultural shifts and how women's sports are consumed. Streaming accessibility, social media amplification, cross-platform storytelling. The timing amplifies her impact. She entered at a moment when digital ecosystems were primed for rapid scaling. That alignment of talent, timing, and technology accelerates visibility. Wilson entered in a different phase, one with slower amplification loops. That context matters. It doesn't diminish her accomplishments. It explains disparity in scale, and scale is what brands measure. The most telling signal isn't social media praise or criticism. It's sustained purchasing behavior. Do consumers continue buying beyond the first drop? Do ratings remain elevated beyond novelty? Do secondary markets maintain price elasticity around specific matchups? If the answer stays yes, the commercial engine strengthens. If it tapers, recalibration happens. But as of now, the engine is accelerating. Another overlooked component is generational relatability. Clark resonates strongly with younger demographics who engage digitally, share clips rapidly, and treat athletes as lifestyle figures rather than purely sports figures. That crossover appeal increases category flexibility. Brands outside traditional sports sectors become viable partners. The more categories an athlete can authentically occupy, the higher the endorsement ceiling. That ceiling expansion is visible in real time. Meanwhile, Wilson's pathway to expanding her own commercial ceiling isn't closed,